we are going to make unintimidating sourdough bread. I do not have the kind of life that I can spend like 2 straight days making bread. Even though I've made bread for many, many years, I enjoy making homemade bread. Sourdough to me was just a little bit intimidating, and then I just decided, you know what, maybe I should just try it and see what happens. And so I looked up a lot of different videos and watched recipes and all that kind of stuff, or looked up recipes and watched videos. You get what I mean. So anyway, I found my own way of doing it, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. So you're going to need a sourdough starter. I actually purchased my sourdough starter online. You can do so through Etsy or through Facebook Marketplace. And mine is in this. And there's a rubber band on here for a reason, because the rubber band tells you where you were. And then what happens is like after I feed it, like a couple of hours later, it like gets up here, which is really great, which means it's active. So you have to feed your starter every day if you keep it on the counter. Feed it once a week if you keep it in the fridge. So what we're going to start with is 1 1/4 cup of warm water, and it cannot be tap water because there's all kinds of crap in tap water, like chlorine and nasty stuff. My water comes from the mountains, as if you've watched previous videos, as you well know, and so it's very, very pure. And then we're going to take 3/4 cup of the sourdough starter. Now, taking 3/4 cup from this is going to take a lot of it away. I don't have a lot left, but there's just enough in there, so when I feed it later on this afternoon, I feed it at the same time every day, approximately. It'll be fine. All right, so I'm going to pour that into my water, set that aside, and cover my sourdough starter. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 cups of flour. I like bread flour, and I don't like whole wheat. I tried whole wheat flour with sourdough. I just don't like the density. So I'm using unbleached bread flour from, I think it's White Lily, but I also like King Arthur. So we're going to get 3 cups of flour. This is actually 1 1/2 cups. Okay. Now to that, I add a little bit of sugar. You do not have to add sugar if you don't want to add sugar. To me, it just does a little something to the taste. So it's basically like a teaspoon of sugar. And then I eyeball salt. It's probably 1.5 teaspoons or so of salt. Then we use our dough mixer. A lot of people, stand mixer, not dough mixer. It technically is a dough mixer, but some people like to use their hands. I don't have time for that stuff. So I'm going to put this on mix for 5 minutes. Let it mix for 5 minutes. If it's a little bit too sticky, I'm going to add a tiny little bit of flour. You want it a little bit sticky. You don't want it super dry. So we'll be back and I'll show that to you. So it's doing pretty good. It's actually a nice consistency, maybe a little on the dry side, but I'm going to wait after those 5 minutes are up, whatever, and then we'll see what it looks like then. So while the dough is finishing, I'm taking my favorite bowl. This is my favorite bowl right here for bread, and I put some olive oil in there, and I'm going to spread that olive oil all around to make this a super well greased bowl. By the way, if you notice, the light is so much better. I forgot I had a light that I could be turning on while I'm making my videos. Better late than never. But I can't really redo this because it's sourdough bread. So yeah, lessons learned. Okay, so it's nice and oily. Now what we're going to do is stop the KitchenAid. See? Nice looking dough, man. So get it off the dough hook. I don't know if you can see me. Yeah, I guess you can a little bit. Get it off the dough hook. And then we're going to put the dough in the silver bowl. So what you do now is you wait 3 hours. I really like starting this by 10 o'clock in the morning, because if you start it by 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll have bread by dinner time. So that's my big suggestion. So we're going to move the heavy KitchenAid, and then we're going to cover the dough with plastic. Now what I want to get is a hairnet, a plastic hairnet. So I don't remember whose video I saw on YouTube where they suggested the hairnet. Maybe it was Instagram. I was like, that's brilliant. Like, that is just the awesomest thing. And I forgot to get one this weekend when I was out shopping. So we're going to take the dough and we're going to put it in the oven with the light on and just let it sit there. And during this 3-hour time, we're going to come back 2 or 3 times and gently fold the sourdough. And I will show you what that looks like when we come back to do it. All right, so this is the lift and fold technique that you do with sourdough bread 2 to 3 times during the 3-hour rise. So clean hands, reach in the bowl. If there's enough oil, get the oil on your hands. This one does not quite have enough oil on it, so I'm going to get some oil to put on my hands. Whoops. Never have too much olive oil, right? Okay, so with the bowl in front of you, grab the dough at one corner, lift it like this, bring it to the middle. Turn the bowl, grab it, lift it, put it in the middle, turn the bowl, grab it, bring it to the middle, and do the same thing on the 4th side. So this like fluffing and folding helps give the bread its nice shape. So you can do it 4 times, or you can do it 6, or you can do it 8. Depends on what you want. So each time you do it, cover it back up with the plastic until the next time. And so the next time we meet, I'm going to show you what to do next for the final rise. All right, so now it's time to get your dough out of the bowl and get it in kind of the shape that you are wanting it to be in when it bakes. So my dough is looking decent. So I have down here a cutting board with some flour on it. So I'm going to take my dough out of my favorite bowl, just sit it here. And then I'm going to take some paper towel and just wipe this extra stuff out of my bowl, because the bread's going to go back in this bowl for its final rise. All right, so we're going to take some flour and put it on the bread and do a little bit more folding. Yes, the bread. Mason says the bread. Do some more folding, and then I'm going to flip it around. I need some more flour. Mason James' favorite thing to play with is flour. I could show you pictures of... No, you cannot have the container of flour. So, there are people who do like, really fancy things. He's eating flour. With like a dough scraper, okay? But I don't want to, so I'm not going to. So I'm going to use my hands, and I'm just going to kind of like lift it. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the bubbles. I'm going to take the phone off of that in a second to show you the bubbles forming on the top of this. You don't want to break those bubbles. That's all the fermentation. That's all the good stuff happening in the sourdough. So you don't want to break them. Just be super careful. So I'm going to show that to you right now. You see the little bubbles? Oh. Yeah. So that is good stuff happening with the bread. Now what I'm going to do is take some parchment paper and stick it in the bowl. And then carefully take my bread and put it on the parchment paper. Okay. So, oh, there's more bubbles popping up. Yay. Then I'm going to cover it again with plastic. And again, once I get my hairnet, I'm going to use the hairnet. It's never going to be on my head, because I don't know what I would use a hairnet for. So cover it with the plastic. It keeps the moisture in nicely. And let it sit for an hour to 2 hours until you are seeing that it's risen enough. It looks really nice. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you what to do after that. Do you see this right here? You need one of those. Whether you have an enamel one or a cast iron one like mine, you'll need to have one of those with a lid. And I really actually prefer the cast iron over my enamel one. My enamel one gets super stinky. You have to preheat it in a cold oven. And so what's going to happen is about 45 minutes or so before you're ready to bake your bread, you're going to cook your pot in the oven, sit it in a cold oven, turn the heat up to about 450 degrees, and let that heat for about 45 minutes or so. And you have to be extremely careful and take it out and put the bread in. But I'll show you that in a video in a little bit. All right, so now the bread is nicely risen. I'm going to carefully remove the plastic wrap, because for sourdough, you want to get a little bit of a skin on the top of the bread. So you'll leave the plastic off while you are cooking the cast iron pot in the stove. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is to get some flour. And so let me put this on pause and go grab the flour, because I forgot to get it out. Hold on. So you're going to dust the top of your bread generously with some flour. It just kind of makes the design that you're going to cut into it look super cool. And so now you're going to cut a design into the top. And the reason why you do that is so that when the bread rises a little bit, it has like some movement. It can move. I bet you there's some kind of like physics term for that. Viscosity. I don't know. Anyway, so I have this. This is like a fancy schmancy bread scoring tool. And I have to be super careful, because right here is a big old bubble, and we don't want to pop the big old bubble. So I'm just going to do a random kind of scoring on this to not burst that bubble. These aren't as easy as they look, although they are really super sharp. So I'm going to give it like just 3 lines. That's all I'm going to do. You can get super creative. So as you saw from the video thumbnail image, that was a really pretty sunshine that I made. I actually wanted it to be a sunflower. Turned out looking like a sunshine. That's okay. So you're going to leave this out, sitting on your stove, while you're cooking your pot for about 45 minutes or so. It'll be horribly, horribly hot. And then, all right, now it's go time, folks. So we're going to get the extremely hot pot out of the stove. Okay. Take the lid off. Ooh, look at that steaming. Now, super carefully, gently. Okay, Mason, you can't take mommy's pot holders. This is really hard to do with a toddler. I don't know if you know that, but it is. Okay. Super carefully move the bread gently lay it in. Don't flap it, okay? Cover it with this freaking hot lid. Put it in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. Then go in and take that extremely hot lid off and bake it for another 15 to 20 minutes till it's nice and brown. So we'll be back when we get there. Look at that bread. So that's what it looks like when it comes out. And you're gonna take that parchment paper out very, very carefully and let the bread rest. As long as you can handle it, let the bread rest before you cut it. And that's how you make sourdough bread the easy way.